Welcome to Tanya Outside In, up to chapter 10. But before we begin, I just want to tell you, I've never actually said this, I don't think really. I've maybe mentioned it once or twice to people in private. But there's a really amazing thing that if you've got little children, you might know this, that the way Hashem deals with hashgacha with little children is amazing. It's much more obvious. Like because they need children aren't so they're not so subtle. They're not nuanced in how they see things. So Hashem's still having to teach them that there's Rabbeinu Shalom, there's Schar and Oynesh, that there's the world works according to Torah, Din Cheshbon, etc., etc. So, but he makes it very obvious for children. I've seen it so obviously so many times. It's like much easier to see the hashgacha in young children's lives than in your own life a lot of the time. So just today, just two very cute little things is my son Yochanan, my 11-year-old. He helped me out this morning a lot, and then he came on a job with me as like my assistant's assistant. And very rarely he gets a tip, but I said to him this time, "Listen, I give you a bracha that you're going to get a tip today, okay?" And I said to him, whatever tip you get, I'm going to double the tip. That's not going to be your wage. I'll give you a wage as well, and I'll double the tip. Yeah. So he had two jobs. First job were very lovely people, didn't give a tip. The second job were also, I mean, they were nice people, but hi Michael. But like with they really needed to pay overtime and they didn't want to pay, and it was all a bit like fetchy with the money, like it was like money was more, was more choshev to them. And so I kind of figured in my head, whatever. So Yochanan won't get a tip. And just as we're leaving, the guy's like, "Here, Yochanan, take this." Gave him 50 shekel.
Mm.
Yeah. And then another thing, this is really cool. This is really funny, is that my son Shimmy, who's also been doing like a little work here and there for people, and he's been getting 10 shekel, 20 shekel, and he's been indulging himself a little bit, treating himself to nice ice creams. And his younger brother, who isn't as capable of him as him, has not had the same kind of means to buy such fancy ice creams. Yeah. So, Shim is 6 years old and Simcha's 4, and they whatever. So Simcha anyway. Eventually, Simcha got himself. Yochanan gave Simcha 5 shekels. Simcha got whatever. Shimmy gave Simcha 2 shekels. Yeah, and my wife. Anyway. Simcha. I come in. Simcha's eating one of these big ice lollies, big ice creams. I'm like, wow, how'd you get that? He said whatever. So it came out that Shimmy gave Simcha 2 shekels. My 6-year-old gave my 4-year-old 2 shekels, that's a big thing. And I'd forgotten about that. This was an hour later, and I got some change, in fact, from the job from those people who paid me earlier. And I got the change, and I had 4 shekels, 4 single shekels in my hand. And I don't remember doing this before. I put it in my hand, Shim is in front of me. I close in my hand, I put my hands behind my back, and I said to him, "Guess which hand?" I'd never done such a thing. I decided in my head, if he gets the right hand, he gets the money. If he gets the wrong hand, he doesn't get the money. And Baruch Hashem, he got the right hand. And he got the money. This kid went exploded. And then I realized, oh, you gave your 4-year-old brother 2 shekels. And Hashem paid you back 4 shekels. Isn't that weird? He was like, wow. I said, go to your room, say shkoyach. That's what he did. But just to see the open hashgacha just so obvious in your young children's lives is a wonderful, wonderful thing. I just wanted to share that with everyone before we get into the chapter. Okay, so into the chapter. So this is one of my favorite chapters in Tanya. Chapter 10, page 28. It's quite difficult. At least there's a subtle nuanced part that we do need to get that's a bit of work, but it's worth it. So I don't know if you remember the end of chapter 9. Basically, the Rebbe went off on a poetic kind of, it really weren't just two things. It was the poetic dream of the Nefesh Elokis, And it was actually a great summary of everything we had learned up until now. Like a really, really good, quick but powerful summary of everything we learned now. He spoke about basically the experience of the Benoni becoming a tzaddik. That's what that whole thing was about, where he does the right kind of he's involved in the right kind of avoiders, thinking about the right kinds of things, where the love in the right side of his heart, the divine love in his right side of his heart, pours over and is mavatel, so to speak, the Yetzer Hara that's in the left side of the heart. And then what do you have left? We just have one godly heart. That's it. You're kula for Hashem. You've stopped worrying and thinking about all your own personal needs, and you're full of divine love. So that's where we left off. So now, chapter 10, the Rebbe is going to explain, B'ezrat Hashem, what it really means at tzaddik and the difference between the two tzaddikim. You remember we mentioned that there's two kinds of tzaddikim. There's what we call the tzaddik gamor, the complete tzaddik, and the tzaddik she'eina gamor, the incomplete tzaddik, or in synonymous other words for these same ideas is called a tzaddik v'toiv loy, a tzaddik who has good, and a tzaddik v'ra loy, a tzaddik who has ra. So what is the difference? Because we've already established that have we established that? Yeah, we have established it. We're going to say it stronger in the next few chapters, but we've established already that the Benoni does, says, and thinks nothing wrong. He is perfect in his behavior, meaning he might have a bad thought, a dirty thought, or a vicious thought, or a kafiric thought, but he doesn't entertain it. He gets rid of it. He pushes away. He distracts himself. He's masir das. So he doesn't think about having a bad thought pop into your mind is not called an avera in thought. Chas v'shalom. Having a bad thought pops into your mind is called a schus, because now you have the opportunity to give something back to the Ribbono Shel Olam. Stop thinking about it. That's a gift to the Ribbono Shel Olam. If you can push that thought out of your mind, the Rebbe uses the lashon later on b'shtei yadayim. Push it away b'shtei yadayim. And like we said over and over, just distract yourself like a kid, like a little kid. Like you put a toy in a kid's hand, he forgets about the ice cream that his older brother took. You can do exactly the same thing with yourself. Exactly the same thing with yourself. Your brain works in the exact same way. Nothing changed. Literally. Just start thinking about something else. Just turn your attention somewhere else. And don't allow your brain to dominate you. Don't be a sucker. Don't be a sucker. So we've got a real question here, because if the Benoni is perfect in thought, speech, and action, Shangavil, if the Benoni is perfect in thought, speech, and action, so then what on earth is the tzaddik? Well, how much better did it get? And we know that we're talking about some kind of internal difference. Nice. So we said that the tzaddik is internally in line. The tzaddik, the Tzemach Tzedek says, one of the ways you could see the difference between a tzaddik and actually, I'm not sure if you said that, but one of you personally, I don't think that a human being, a normal human being, could tell the difference between a tzaddik and a Benoni. I don't think you could see the difference. You might, the only difference might be every now and again with a Benoni, you might like see him go like this and back again, like he had a bad thought. But otherwise, on his speech is perfect, his actions perfect, and for all intents and purposes, his thought is also perfect. So I don't think you can tell the difference in the tzaddik and the Benoni. Maybe on some kind of spiritual level, maybe, but definitely not on a practical level with your fleishika eyes. So fine. So now we've said that the interesting. Huh? From your Indian trip. Yeah, on my Indian friends. Oh, hey Raj. Oh, hi. Hi, that's so nice to see you. Wow. She just made my day. I thought Gabrielle made my day, but you he put the icing on the cake. You put the cherry on top. Anyway,
7 layers.
yeah, so now, okay, great. So the tzaddik never has any kind of internal conflict. He doesn't have that bad thought pop into his head. Great. So now, what on earth could be the difference between the tzaddik, the two tzaddikim, the tzaddik she'eina gamor and the tzaddik gamor? That we're completely lost, completely lost. Okay, so this is now what we're going to about to explain, and it's subtle. It's really subtle. Um, and I think I'm going to give a quick hakdama that we know this already, but I'm going to give a quick hakdama to the system of the nefesh. Okay, so for all intents and purposes, it begins at pleasure, or oineg. Like we've said before, yeah, we say that chocolate gives me pleasure. Yeah, scratch that out and say chocolate touches my pleasure. That is a tremendous reframe. You are pleasure. That is you. The foundation, the essence of who you are is called oineg, meaning every time that we go against God, it's because of oineg. It's because of pleasure in some shape or form. That is what makes you separate from God, is the fact that you have your own independent sense of pleasure, which means that's what you are. That's the difference between an AI and you. An AI has a seichel, and although an AI says it doesn't have emotions, yeah, it could very easily say that it does have emotions and act emotionally, but it doesn't have an oineg. That's the difference. AI, what? AI, artificial intelligence. The chatbot thing. So excuse me. Let me see how much incense a man can smell. Um, so so you are pleasure. This is really, really foundational, essential to understand. The essence of who we are is called pleasure. Now, we know that pleasure, we don't need to speak about this so much, but pleasure goes out in what's called rotzon, okay, in will. Okay, we don't need to get into that too much. But now that now energizes your seichel. You think about what you want to think about. You understand what you want to understand. Now, seichel becomes manifest in emotions. What you think about is what you feel about. And emotions express themselves in behavior, thought, speech, and action. Everyone's clear on that system? So it goes oineg. Okay, we're going to skip ratzon. Oineg, ratzon, seichel. Let me ask everyone a question. How much self is in seichel? Yeah. Gabriel said 0. Your seichel is literally an AI. Or I should say it the other way. AI is literally a seichel. It's a disembodied seichel. And it's probably a little bit better than our seichel in some ways, depending on who.
It's like mind versus being.
Whatever uses different minds. It's a computer. It's just a computer. And some people's computers are very weak. Some of them are very powerful. Some of them, or most of them, are wired really weirdly, yeah, and think in funny ways. But that's just to do with how they got wired by their parents and by their nature and nurture and all that kind of stuff, yeah, and their societies and all that kind of thing. But seichel is objective. Seichel has no, it's the emotions that are subjective. So, like Gabrielle said, that Seichel's got 0 sense of self. Emotions have 100% of self. Emotions are 100% selfish. When I say selfish, I mean they're self-full. They are me. They're your emotions. Like Michael, let's say you love me, yeah? without you, there's no your love for me, meaning that it's your love for me. So your love for me is 100%. It's you are 100% in the equation. Now your understanding of your understanding of 1 + 1 = 2, that's the same by me. It's the same by everyone. Your final patera, Meva Esrim, will not affect the concept of 1 + 1 = 2 in any way, shape, or form. But your love for me will be gone, or at least moved into some kind of different realm. Okay? So seichel is just it's just a machine. It's just literally like a computer, an incredibly sophisticated computer. Seichel now, depending on what you think about, and remember that's energized by your Ratzon, now that causes emotions. The way you feel about stuff is if you don't know about it, you can't think about it. And the way you think about it, like someone says something nasty to you, and you sit there and you fret over it, and you obsess over it, and you go this way and that way, and you remember the other things that they said and how other people have said similar things to you, and how this person's like this and that way, and you mull it over, and before you know it, quite quickly, you start to have unpleasant emotions towards it. The reason why I give an unpleasant example is basically because we're all familiar with that. Not many of us are familiar with the idea of sitting there, and I think the word's conjugating. Is that a word? To conjugate? No, Gabriel's out. I thought conjugate's a word.
Cogitate.
Cogitate, thank you. I thought, yeah, that's what Gabriel meant. So to cogitate, yeah, which means to like be misboinen, yeah. So the translation would be misboinen. So to be misboinen on good things, that's not, we don't do that so often. Imagine, you just sit there before you come in the house, you spend 5 minutes, like 3 minutes in the car doing a positive hisboineness on how your life is wonderful, how you've just basically got every single blessing in the world, how the things that you're lacking are so minuscule and absolutely irrelevant in the big picture of things that you'll never, ever, ever be able to pay back the Ribono Shel Olam ever, even if you lived 1 trillion lifetimes and you were the biggest tzaddik in the whole wide world ever. Yeah. And the joy of being alive is just absolutely overwhelming. And you come into your house and you're like, "Hi, darling, I'm home. How you doing?" We should do that, no? So anyway, so I gave the other option because that's what we're more familiar with. So we sit there and we mull over the fact that that guy at work said that horrible thing about us, or we got that unpleasant email from that customer. And anyway, so that's how the mind works. The mind cogitates on something, and then is misboinen, and that gives birth to emotions. And then the emotions always express themselves into behavior. If emotions don't express themselves into behavior, yeah, you will feel stifled. And this is an important point. This is a really important point. Thinking about something is an expression of an emotion. Meaning the reason why you're thinking about the way that that person was unpleasant to you is because you now have an emotion of anxiety or fear or whatever that negative emotion is inside you, hate. And that emotion now is expressing itself through thinking. Do you remember in that book, in the Reclaiming Sanity book, it's a famous part of the book where he talks about the two ducks, where the ducks crossed their path. And he said if they were human beings, exactly. He said if they were human beings, that the duck who got his path crossed would be like, "How dare he? I can't believe that guy, man. Every single time. He's always in my way." And you saw the way he looked at me as he went past. He was enjoying it. He enjoyed, and then before you know it, you've got this vendetta against the whole duck's family. And then in fact, you cut off his entire community and you start so what the author said is that the duck, what he does is he just flaps his wings vigorously for a couple of moments, and that's the expression of the emotion. And now he doesn't have to become a victim of that insane thinking that then leads back into the system and causes more negative emotions that cause more thinking, more negative emotions, more thinking, more negative emotions. What Rabbi Daniel Katz calls a Midas Machshava cycle or something like that. It's a nice way of calling it. Machshava Midas cycle, yeah. Like what it's a Machshava's Midas cycle, and you just go down until either you fall asleep or something hits you out of that thing or whatever. Yeah,
get a punching bag.
Or punching bag might help. You have to work out ways to express these emotions. Like the way I do it when my kids, Baruch Hashem, my kids aren't so bad, but in the past I have dealt with some very difficult things with my children, and I've come into my bedroom. I never say it to my child. I've come into my bedroom, my wife's there, and I'll just turn around to her and I say, I hate him. I hate him with such hatred. And then I'm like, oh, Baruch Hashem. Okay. I can talk to him like a mensch. My wife's like, oh, I can't believe you just said that. It's part of the process, but it really helps.
You gave me advice one time. I was flying. I had to make a flight, and I totally missed I didn't miss the flight. It canceled on me back and forth. I boarded. They unboarded me. They boarded. They unboarded. They canceled the flight. I missed a day. I called you up. I remember, and you told me. You said, Yitzi, do yourself a favor. Go to the corner somewhere, and just let it rip, and then you'll be okay. And thank you for that. Oh, he's my brother.
Don't like him. Yeah. So that's how you get it. That's how you get it out. That's nice. That's you do need to get it out. Like you do need to get what?
What do you do if you can't?
No, you have to.
I'm saying certain situations you just can't.
What do you mean?
By the way, Shmuel, that might be what davening is for, actually.
Yeah, Rav Chaimis used to say that, no?
Just get it out, get your anxiety out. Like
shout at God. If you're angry, if you're really upset with what's going on in your life, and it's really hard for you.
Like for me, it says like the silent scream. So
that's it.
Yeah.
Silent scream, that's whatever. However, you need to work out your own system. You need to practice this kind of stuff. It's not a one. You need to work out the way your body works. You need to express things in your own way. I'm just telling you what I do. Okay, so we've got the system, yeah? We've got pleasure that, for all intents and purposes, drives our thinking, our intellect. It's not really our thinking, our intellect, which drives the emotions that express themselves in behavior. Okay, with that Hakdama, let's jump into the text. Hashem should help. V'hinei, behold, kusha adam magbir nafshay elokis, when the man fights with his nefesh elokis, v'nilcham kol kach im bahamis, and he fights a bitter war with the nefesh bahamis, ad shmegaresh mevaya hara sheba machala smuli, until he actually expels and eradicates the Ra from the left side of his heart, from his selfish left side of his heart. As the pasuk says in Dvarim, that you will remove the Ra from your heart. But the Ra didn't turn into mamash toiv. Niklat tzaddik she'eino gamul. He is called a tzaddik who is not complete. Or in other words, a tzaddik v'ra'loi. That's why it's called a tzaddik v'ra'loi. He still has ra. He still has what we're going to call a sense of self. He has a teeny bit of evil left in the left side of his heart. Ella shekafu for batal l'toiv legamrei. But it is completely suffocate. No, that's not such a great word. It's completely sorry, I jumped on. Subjugated, not suffocated. No, subject, yeah. Thank you. It's subjugated and it is nullified to the good. Machmas mi'utoi, because it's so small. And it appears to him like he's chased it out completely. And that it is completely gone away from him. Aval be'emes, however, in truth, ilu cholav v'halach loi. We'll unpack this. I know this is very difficult. Aval be'emes, Ezrat Hashem. Aval be'emes, ilu cholav v'halach loi. If, however, it had truly been vanquished and pushed away, legamrei, koharasha boy, ha'nepach l'toiv mamash, it would have become completely good. Okay? Biur inyan. Now we're going to explain that because that was very difficult to understand, and he was using very kind of metaphoric language that isn't quite in line with the system that I explained there, because it was very kind of metaphorical and borrowing terms from the Zohar and stuff. But now he ties it down into the Chabad system that he so masterfully created. Biur inyan. Yine Tzadik Gamor. The explanation is as follows: that the Tzaddik Gamor Shnei Pachara Shaloi L'Toiv, he turned the Ra in him to good. L'chein Nikra Tzaddik V'Toiv, therefore he's called the Tzaddik V'Toiv. Who Oyidei Hasas Begadim Etzoyim Legamrei Me'ara. That is by way of removing the filthy, soiled garments completely from the Ra, the Hainu. That means limois ma'oid b'tanu goyim hazeh, to be completely repulsed by the pleasures of this world. Before you jump to this, not to be repulsed by the pleasures of this world, but lis'aneg bam b'tanugim b'nei adam lemalois taiv as a goof b'ilvad v'loy la'avodas Hashem. He is repulsed by the idea, literally sickened by the idea of being involved in any kind of taiva for yourself, meaning eating chocolate gatto not on Shabbos to the Tzaddik Gamor would be something very repulsive. Whereas watching a Yid eat chocolate gatto on Shabbos might be a tremendous pleasure for the Tzaddik Gamor. But to watch him, for him to watch a Yid fressing on the Chol, could be a tremendous tsar. Because the energy from this thing is coming from Klipa and Sitra Achra, his own sense of self. So V'chol ma shehu me Sitra Achra, and everything that comes from the Sitra Achra, what can we let's just start, how can we define Sitra Achra? Can we try and define Sitra Achra a little bit? Definition of Sitra Achra.
It's a her.
What?
It's a her. No.
That doesn't really help.
That was,
Anything that isn't Hashem.
Yes. So the way to remember that is that Sitra Achra is Rosh Tevis Samach Aleph, which is the opposite of Ein Sof. So the Sitra Achra is really, if we could say such a thing, the opposite of God. It's something other than God. It's what allows us to feel that we are not one. We're not a part of a big system. That we are an independent thing, and that to the tzaddik is repulsive.
Same thing as Klippa, right?
Yeah, Sitra Achra and Klippa is synonymous. Yeah, they just teach us different aspects of the same Indian.
That was on one of the quizzes.
That you don't do.
one of the Vahed.
But no one does, except Ben does them. Shkoyach, thank you, Ben. Appreciate that. The tzaddik hates anything from the Sitra Achra, the tachlis asina. He can't deal with this idea of there is something other than God. So when someone's talking like in a way, like he could be talking Torah even, but in a way that it's like oozing with a sense of self, not like a guy thinking that I'm the best, not that. That's off the charts. Obviously we're not talking about that. That's obvious. We're talking about a guy he's just very. I think I don't. Just the guys who's there's you feel there's a lot of self-involvement there. He's the kind of guy who, when he walks past the mirror, he can't not look in the mirror. That's a very, very good avoider, a very healthy avoider for a man. And I think maybe for a woman as well, but definitely for a man, is to not look in mirrors. Very, very, very healthy thing for a man to do is not look in mirrors as much as possible.
Zoom screens count?
Zoom screens also, but mirrors definitely, because a Zoom screen, yeah, whatever. But a mirror is definitely a good thing to avoid looking at. So Machmas Goido, now why does he hate Sitra Achra? B'tachlis Asina. Machmas Goido Avasoi LaHashem V'Kedushasoi, because of his great love for Hashem. But now this is it. This is the words. But Ava Rabba B'Tanugim. He has an Ava Rabba B'Tanugim, a great love which includes in it pleasure. As well, Hashem will explain this. V'chibi Yisera, with a tremendous desire. Kiheim zel umazeh. They go this one opposite that. K'dichsiv tachlis sina sinasim. I hate them with an utter hatred. L'oivim hayuli. They are enemies to me. Charkeni v'dal levavi. Search my heart, search and know my heart. Now this is very helpful for us, yeah. Ukafi erech goido ava la Hashem, kach erech goido asinu l'sitra achra. Because the amount that you love Hashem is commensurate with how much you hate the sitra achra. The mius baraba tachlis, and he's repulsed by evil. Ki mius hu heifech ava mamash. Kamoyasina. The mias is like the opposite of love, like being repulsed, just like hatred. Okay, there's a lot to unpack there. But that basically, the last bit was that what we really need to take away is the way you feel. You want to know how much you love someone, you can see that by how much you hate their enemies. That is a very, very deep indication of your love for so-and-so, is how much you hate their enemy. And if you can tolerate their enemy, then your love for that person is not complete.
What's an example?
What's an example?
Like the ones who hated David Melech.
Yeah, well, that's it.
I thought we were to hate the evil, but not the person.
Yeah, so that's a big thing. We'll get that. We'll talk about that a lot later as well, Tashem. But that I can't think of an example right now. But your love and hate are two sides of the same coin. So if you love someone, then you will hate the opposite, what's neged that person. So if you love God with an ava b'tanugim, yeah, which is the ultimate level of love, which isn't really even a love, yeah, it's not a love like from the heart, yeah, then you hate sitra achra. You hate it. You're repulsed by this idea of independent self. So now this is the way I understand it. This is what's happened. This is the difference. Let's say it now and then we'll carry on a little bit. The difference between the tzaddik gamor and the tzaddik she'eino gamor, which is a very subtle difference, is that the tzaddik she'eino gamor, the tzaddik she'eino gamor, his emotions are utterly aligned with God. Just like the tzaddik gamor. The difference is their pleasure, which is their ultimate self. So just like the tzaddik gamor, it's just like so there's our sense of tainug, our sense of pleasure. Not that's us, that's the me, like we said earlier. Yeah, your pleasure is you. Then from that devolves the seichel, and then comes the emotions On the level of emotion, the Tzaddik Gamor and the Tzaddik She'eino Gamor are completely the same. Their emotions are completely aligned with God. But the difference between the Tzaddik Gamor and the Tzaddik She'eino Gamor is the difference between a human being and a godly being. The difference between a Tzaddik She'eino Gamor and a Rasha Viraloi, the lowest level of Rasha, is infinitely closer than the difference between the Tzaddik She'eino Gamor and the Tzaddik Gamor. The Tzaddik Gamor has, in a sense, graduated from being a human being. He's become a godly man. He still has a seichel, he still has a nefesh, a sichlis. So he has a sense, not a sense of self, but he is still a bas of Adam. But his internal world is absolutely godly. His whole mahus is godly. He just happens to have some flesh as well. Whereas the Tzaddik She'eino Gamor is Givaldic. He's mamish Givaldic. He's the highest level a human being can achieve. He's the highest level a Jew can achieve. The Tzaddik Gamor is like a different thing, Lagamre. It's not a Madrega. It's a different thing, Lagamre. And it's a gift from Hashem. You can't, no matter how hard you work, if Hashem doesn't remove the, as he says, the begadim tsoyim from the pleasure of your animal soul, there's still going to be that core of pleasure that makes me me. Is that clear? This idea took me years to get clear. I'll say it again. Let's try and say it again. So we've got the very core of the system, which is pleasure. Yeah, that's you. Let's talk about we're talking about your animal soul here. Yeah, the animal soul's pleasure is really the most of the time we're identified with the animal soul. The animal soul's pleasure is really you. Now, like we said, that devolves eventually into the emotions that you feel towards stuff. Meaning, I love chocolate cake.
What does it mean pleasure is me? Like, how do I let myself?
Meaning,
what's an application of it?
Eliezer just asked, what does it mean pleasure is me? That means that, like I said, what makes you different from artificial intelligence is on your animal soul level, on your human created level. We're not talking about your godly soul at all. On your human created level is that you have a sense of pleasure. Therefore, you have a drive. The Bina Malchuti, what's it called? The AI, artificial intelligence, does not have a drive. Why? Because it has no sense of pleasure. So what drives the whole system is your sense of pleasure. If you didn't have pleasure, you would be a robot. That's the reason everything that you mess up in your life, everything that's bad in your life, everything that you're doing wrong, that you don't want to be doing, is because of your pleasure. Everything. And avoidance of pain and pleasure is the same thing, two sides of the same coin. So that's why it's you. So it manifests as, not you, but it could manifest as a guy shouting at his wife. It could manifest as a guy hitting his kids. It could manifest as a guy looking at the wrong stuff on the computer. It could manifest as a guy eating, tray for food or not good hechsherim. It could manifest as so many different things, but it's just the same thing. It's just the same thing. It's just your pleasure. How does it manifest? It could manifest in endless ways, but it's your pleasure. So that's what our fight now. Now, the tzaddik, this is the thing. This is the tzaddik Gamor. His pleasure has gone. His human pleasure has become godly pleasure.
His real you is there.
That's a big stat. I don't know how to answer that question.
When you say the animal?
What's the real you? That depends on who. That depends. That's not a simple question. Ask me at a specific time and tell me exactly what's going on in your system, and I'll be able to tell you what you are right now. If you're the animal soul, if you're the godly soul, if you're the nefesh hamasgeles, it depends on what we flip through different. Most of the time, I identify with the animal soul. Most of the time, the ani is my animal soul.
For Znifta, though,
I don't know what happens when you lie.
What do you do?
There's all kinds of separations and
okay.
things like that, but I'm not sure. But okay, so now the Tzaddik Gamor has no individual pleasure, so he couldn't do an Avera. He couldn't. Like, maybe he could get tricked into doing something that was wrong, but it wouldn't be ever for his own self. But listen to this: the Tzaddik She'eino Gamor doesn't care about his pleasure. How does that manifest? Yeah, well,
So subtle.
it's so subtle, but it's really. But the funny thing is, like I just said, it's so subtle. But the difference between the Tzaddik She'eino Gamor and the Rasha Gamor is infinitely less than the difference between the Tzaddik She'eino Gamor and the Tzaddik Gamor. They're different creatures. They're completely different creatures. Well, they're literally a world apart. Well, no, they're not a world apart at all. They are all the worlds apart. It's the difference between Elokus and a very elevated Nivra.
It's Hashem and a person, right?
I didn't say that, but it's Elokus. The man is now a godly man. He's not an elevated
Can you
human.
say
He's
the
a
Shiva
godly man.
Roim were all godly men? They're all
The
tzaddik.
who?
The Shiva Roim were all tzaddik.
I'm sure. Yeah. So yeah, you can. So according to what I understand. So the Tzaddik She'eino Gamor, he doesn't pay attention to his pleasure. Meaning that because his emotions are aligned with God, his pleasure isn't part of the equation, because behavior is always a manifestation of emotion. So he behaves perfectly, but without a fight, because his emotions are completely aligned. But there is a sense of self there. There's still a sense of independent reality there. And now that means, just on a practical level, that the Tzaddik She'eino Gamor would be sitting there on an uncomfortable chair, and right next to him will be a more comfortable chair. And that more comfortable chair does not proffer any benefit in avoidance Hashem whatsoever. He would not get up and sit in the more comfortable chair. So we have a beautiful definition for now the Tzaddik She'eino Gamor, we'll call him just the Tzaddik, and the Rasha. Because the Rasha is the person who will inconvenience you for his pleasure. His pleasure is so real to him that he will put you out for his pleasure. To the ultimate level of, I mean, in my mind, the ultimate level of Rasha I always think about is Ted Bundy in Machshemai of Zichroi. Yeah, he was a man who raped and murdered people, women. So his pleasure would allow him to physically harm and kill other people. Rahman al-Islam. How much more real could your pleasure be to you? And how much more unreal could another person be to you? So the Tzaddik, the Rasha, will put you out for his pleasure. The Tzaddik wouldn't even put himself out for his pleasure.
Tzaddik She'eino Gamor.
The Tzaddik She'eino Gamor, yeah. He wouldn't put himself out for his own pleasure. Meaning, if the food is edible, it's not going to give him a stomachache. He's not going to get up and go to the microwave to warm it up. Why? Because it tastes better? I don't care. That's the Tzaddik She'eino Gamor. The Tzaddik Gamor, like I said, is in a whole different realm. The Tzaddik Gamor, there is no voice that says, I don't care. There's no having to say, I don't care about that pleasure. It's not there. There's no, you hear the difference? So it's the different, it's so subtle. It's the difference between the highest level of creation and then a godly human being. I didn't say God. I said a godly human being. He's become a godly human being. So I think we'll hold it. Yeah, to be continued. This is really, I really love the beauty of that. It's so elegant, it's so sophisticated and it's just so like, it's so, what's the word? Like solid, not solid, what's the word? Like robust. The system is just so perfectly formed, and how you see it throughout the entire Tanya, the same separations and distinctions in different scenarios and in different contexts end up, but it's the same Inyan again and again. And it's just, this is now on the level of putting it into human, plugging it into the concept of a human being, right, into a Jew. Okay, we should have a Gemach Simcha Tova, B'ezrat Hashem, it's Sukkos, so good Yom Tov. And we're making this siyum we have this Simchas Beis Sheva thing. It's 4 o'clock. It starts like basically 5 o'clock on Sunday, English time, Israel time. We're gonna put a link. We're gonna have a big screen there with a camera. So if you want to just pop in and say hello and just have a look for a couple of minutes, it will be the regular Zoom link. And we'd love to see your face at least digitally, just for just for a minute or two, or hang out and just enjoy the vibes. Be a lot of singing and good Torah b'ezrat Hashem. And then I want to give a Torah on about the Chag. I want to give it in the sukkah. Really, it would probably be kedaita for me to give it beforehand, because it would be a good thing to think about. For obviously, maybe I'll make like an emergency share in the next day or two. But otherwise, everyone should have a good Yom Tov. We'll be B'kasher. Zaygasm.